This is Winning the Game of Life, presented to you by Dan Jungleman Cates.
One
I
topic.
struggled a lot.
Well, we should definitely explore that. I mean, I want to explore also where in Canada you went, because that's also a bit my thing. I'm putting together a lot of like cool travel destinations on the whole, and I think people would like to know like of the travel stories in the the mountains and the parks or whatever it was that you went. You explored those, right? You did the Iditarod or whatever. Hopefully, I mean, the dog sleds and
The dog sleds. First of all, those things cost money, and I was on a budget. But you know what? Like, it was a challenge. It was a fun content thing for me. But like a lot of up and coming poker players do kind of live like that, like session to session. Whether they can like pay their bills, and like it kind of just like took me to the roots of like why I love the game and got into it in the first place. There was also like after a time when I was like running kind of bad and like a little burnt out and so I was like trying to fall in love with the game again and the challenge definitely helped me do that. But yes, like basically the longer I stayed at a place, the more nights of hotels I would have to spend money on. So I was trying to do the thing as quickly as possible.
wait. So how did you make this work? How did you make this work with $1,500 if a flight's $500?
I had finished, I think it was like 10 out of the 13 provinces and territories I did, but I was down to my last like $300 when I was in the Yukon. And I even told the host, like, hey, this is all the money I have on me. Do you think you could like spot me? Because I had a bit more of my bankroll online. But that session, the guys just kept wanting to play PLO double board bomb pot, and I ended up making like $4,000 at 1-2.
Oh wow. To be fair, they're very bad at bomb pot. Like I thought. I mean, if the rake's high, it's questionable whether it's beatable. I want people to not charge high rake at weird games, because how do you determine what the rake should be? But man, have I seen some terrible play at the PLO bomb pot. Where I thought, wow, okay, there must be some big edges.
Yeah, exactly. Like in No Limit, like you don't see the complete jewelers anymore, right?
Jewelers?
Jewelers. Like if you sit down at the table, you more or less know like kind of what you're doing. You're not gonna punt off like infinite big blinds.
Surprise.
But in PLO double board bomb pot, I still like see it happening a lot, where people just get in way too much money with not a very good hand.
Expenses are really brutal for the poker player, for the average tournament grinder. And yeah, like you said, when I was starting out, even though I was playing some 5K and 10K EPTs, I was often sharing rooms or sleeping on couches for next to nothing, sometimes just nothing. And this is another reason why it's so much harder for women to break through, because not every girl is going to be comfortable with that. And yeah, like I said, literally slept on the floor on a cot and like at PCA when I banked for 4th place and won $500,000.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So it can be a struggle. I know how lucky I got, and I understand like the survivor bias that I definitely have as well. Because if just like 1 or 2 tournaments did not go well, I probably wouldn't be here. I'd be, working at some bank somewhere doing something really boring.
Well, how do you negate the expenses? That's one of the second question, other than that don't involve sleeping on the floor. That's not particularly. Maybe there's a way to like pull together resources for like rooms or something.
Yeah, exactly. And this is another reason why community is so important. The larger of a pool that you can draw from to share expenses with you, the more likely you are to have a better cushion to succeed.
This is one of the functions, by the way, of the Jungleverse, which I of course get excited about, because the whole idea is to help these guys fix their shit at these lower stakes so they become free and roam the Yukon if they want, and not have to worry about having to play their friend heads up at Yellowknife, or not having to have baby seal, I guess, or getting lost in the Arctic wilderness or whatever. What did you say to reduce the expenses?
Having a larger community of people you
yeah.
can share expenses with.
Are there any barriers maybe for women in general, or just players at these levels, or what's going on here?
Yeah, that's a great question. And yes, there are. I think experience and confidence is a huge barrier. If you look at the high stakes cash game or the high stakes tournament scene, it's very, very cliquey. There's guys who run in groups. They all sell action to each other. Like that just doesn't exist in the female community. And you need to have so many people with like really deep pockets to believe in you to be able to like get to that level. I mean, like what are really the ROIs of these players playing these Tritons? really not that high. They need like hundreds of millions of dollars to be able to afford to play. And the reality is just women as a demographic just don't have as much money as guys. And it's harder for them to find like no strings attached staking, I would say.
Yeah, I have heard that complaint before. A lot, some girls told me that many guys want, they're not in it just for, actual like support without like some ulterior motive related to like, sexual attraction. I could see that being quite a problem on the whole when it comes to once money starts getting involved. That seems like generally a difficult problem. And yeah, I could see that. I mean, I've had the experience where I'm not really in the group of all the guys that are like banded together, but I have my own crew. Like I don't really have the same issues, but I could see how, yeah, it could be a bit cliquey, and it's not so easy to, even if they don't really have like any overt bias, they may not want to do things such as like find ways of staking you in 25Ks. To be fair, that does require quite some previous, proof? Yeah, I guess that could be a good reason why a lot of women are not playing high rollers, you could say. That makes sense to me. That being said, if these guys really aren't that good, a lot of them are going to lose their money and like stop playing.
So much of the skill of playing high rollers is your ability to sell and market yourself to the right people and having them like you. And of course, you have to be talented, but I would say that's a huge chunk of what it takes to be running in those circles.
What are the biggest controversies in your opinion, Norman?
Well, in the poker world, I always was worried about online poker. Mm-hmm. From a number of standpoints. I never was worried about it in terms of the safety of the money. So when Full Tilt Poker did not have the money to pay out millions and millions of dollars not to pay out to thousands of players, that's the worst I'd ever seen it. Because again, I would have figured that online from day one was troublesome, even though I was told that I was an idiot, because you have these measures online that you don't have live. You can have hand histories, you can check everything out, and everything's cool. I never believed that, because anytime there's money to be made, someone will find a way to game the system. So I thought there's a million problems with online, and online might have more cheating than live, but I never thought that the money was going to be a problem. I was pretty naive. So that was the biggest scandal as far as I'm concerned, when you don't have the money that people put in, and then they can't take it back out. There were a lot of reverberations from that, and it changed a lot of people's lives who were obviously too heavily committed to the money they put into their Full Tilt account.
In general, in poker, there's a big theme of people not being able to pay their debts. They do irresponsible things is usually the reason why they don't pay, in my opinion. Not really outright scams, but scams because people do this and that and don't pay their debts. Yeah, it's one of those things not really touched upon, but it's also a lot of potential comedy writing and comedy commentating. I hope, I presume you must have had a blast with the Full Tilt scandal. I mean, who knows how many jokes were in that one, especially with the CEO not being the sharpest tool in the shed, to say the least, or whatever other, what are the terms, analogies there are for Ray Bitar.
Yeah, I left Ray Bitar alone. I figured the public would take care of him.
That's what I did. A bunch of people took care of him. So who did you go after? Go ahead. We'll try to be fair to people. We're justice warriors now, but sometimes when you're justice warrioring, you got to make fun of certain people. Let's talk about who did right, who did wrong. Go over that briefly and go over more recent scandals.
Yeah, can't find a lot of people who did right during Full Tilt.
I disagree with that. I disagree. I know of a couple.
Oh, that you'll be able to tell me and tell us. I was going to say that before I assign blame to anybody, the thing about Full Tilt still remains is that we don't know what we don't know. There's still a lot of stuff that we're just never sure about. So when people are loading, just pile driving onto, whether it be Chris Ferguson or Howard Lederer, for instance, I don't know what the situation was, how much they knew or didn't know themselves. And so I have always been reticent to be throwing rocks at some people. Now you're telling me there's some people who did right through the Full Tilt.
I know some people that did right and that some people that did wrong, actually. I have a little bit of inside information I didn't think I would be the one revealing it. But Chris Ferguson, for example, I was told from somebody who was looking at buying Full Tilt or making a deal with this that Chris Ferguson never took any money from the site. He actually behaved admirably. There's another guy that I was told did do well as well that people have no idea about. And by the way, a really strong hallmark of virtue is when you do good things and no one knows and no one gives a fuck, which means you basically don't get the reward for doing it. You just kind of get shafted by the universe. The universe is just like, you know what, fuck you. You're a good person. You don't get anything for it anyway. So another one was Gus Hansen. He did not withdraw his funds or any such thing, even though he had the option to, unlike another well-known high-stakes poker player. But I won't reveal him because the other guy, even though I'm a little upset with him because of another matter, but another one did help his friends withdraw from Europe. John Jawanda has something to say about him. I don't know if he wants to say it or not. But there were a couple people didn't behave particularly well. Let's put it like this. A lot of the pros have the options of paying the money back to players from their own pocket because effectively, you know, they've stolen money from the players, or at least a lot of the money is unrightfully theirs. I mean, you could look at it like this, right? Because let me back up. They haven't exactly stolen. It's more like they've just kept it, and it's not really fair to not give it back. I know Tom Dwan promised to give it back loads of money, but didn't have it or didn't give it back. I mean, that doesn't seem much better. But all the other pros that were involved kind of just kept the money and didn't really do the good thing. Let's put it that way. It was the opportunity for them to do something that was definitely in the good direction and then did it. I don't know what the reward would have been, some like hand clapping or something. If they gave the money back, they would have been out loads of money. But yeah, like no one really did that. Let's put it that way. And there's some larger shared people with larger shares that could have done that. It's not really hard to figure out who those people are.
Hi guys, I'm Dan Cates, and you may know me from poker as Jungleman. And now I'd like to give you the keys to that success so that you can have success in those games as well, and in fact win the game of life. And that begins with freedom.
And you want to have the community to help you to get there. Join the Jungleverse now. We've got many of the tools and many of the links towards the best stuff that's out there in the poker market. And I'm committed to helping you guys become real champions of the game and make your dreams come true. That's my goal for you all. Join here. I'm helping us all work together to make a better future for everyone.
Why don't you talk about ghosting, because that is a relatively more common phenomena, easiest thing to do in the world. So why don't you talk about your own history with ghosting and where you end up with it?
All right. Well, let me do a brief summary as objective as I can of the scandal. So basically, it was COVID when all this happened, and I actually was introduced late to this group of people, and a couple presumably reputable people, and people that are known to be reputable, came to me and were like, hey, do you want to play on this guy's account? Now everyone's playing on other people's accounts. Like, it's ridden with people using other players' accounts, including the site owners was using someone else to play on his account rapidly. He settled privately. I don't really feel like attacking him. And there's another person seen I've used all sorts of people on his account. And then there are other people used people on their accounts too. And it was like, it was described as almost the norm at this point, which was the condition for me to play. Yeah, I think that's all fair to say, although maybe people won't necessarily know that. And so I did. And so I did not win. I won some and then lost most of it back. Ironically, to Tom. Ended up not really making any money. And then, yeah, I played almost all no limit. And then someone mentioned my name, and I actually think I confirmed the suspicions, but I didn't think, okay, it could be taken beyond what I actually did. And so at some point, it came to terms with, okay, this is clearly a mistake. And I realized that, okay, even though there are a bunch of people doing this bad thing, if there's one person innocent, then I'm doing something bad against this person, which was Bill Perkins in this case. Although, I was playing in a poker game where it was understood that people were multi-accounting in some kind of way, which also that's not necessarily true that they are. Ghosting is the more official term, which, by the way, we need a team of Ghostbusters to bust these ghosts out there, because it takes, who else is going to do it? You know, that's who you got to call when you got the ghosts out there. Anyway, back on point. So, yeah, I admitted it. Then I got blasted. And then I realized, yeah, okay, so I can see that if one person is innocent, then I've offended that person, even though I'm equal with the person who's also ghosting. And it's like, okay, so I can't do it, period. Unfortunately, this is just no for an absolute fact. Like, it was heads up, fine, but whatever. And then I realized that I came from the mentality in Asia where it was much more acquitted. For some reason, people didn't care as much. I think that might change in the future, though. And a lot of people do it quite a bit more in Asia. I realized that mentality was not quite the same in the U.S., but that the U.S. mentality is much closer to right. I think they're a little bit more pitchfork mentality, generally speaking, which isn't perfect in the other direction, but their mentality is better. And there needs to be, almost paradoxically, like pretty heavy emotions against this sort of thing. So I realized that, okay, all the people in Asia are wrong. And so I decided to not do it, period, since then. Even though multiple friends have tried to convince me, and one person's like really tried to convince me, like offered me like multiple times, 5 to 8 times. I said no every time. He's like, oh, you can't change anybody. But anyway, with the multi-accounting stuff, I still think there's some of it going on. I think it goes on quite a bit in private clubs. I heard that there was some going on in a club I'm not playing in. Even though I really want to, I was playing it illegally. And then I got accused multiple times of playing in stuff I never played in. I could have totally played in a lot of things and didn't. I got multiple opportunities. And I just don't believe in it, really.
I want to hold your feet to the fire on some stuff you said.
Okay.
You do it because you knew other people were doing it. Now, right there, I mean, and you're a smart individual. You got a higher IQ than I do. You know the difference between right and wrong. So just doing it just because you know other people are doing it, so it's like it's like a league of hustlers. That's a bad starting point.
Well,
like you could just you turn that faucet off right there and just say, no, I'm just going to do something else. Go ahead.
So there's a nuance there. I was doing it to people who I knew were doing it, not because other people. Well, okay, so let's back up a second. You're actually, part of what you're saying is right. So initially I was doing it because other people were doing it, right? And then I realized, oh fuck, that's wrong. This is when I admitted I did it. Okay, like that's clearly wrong. That's like something that's wrong. I'm trying to justify that if somebody is doing it, then that makes you guys equal. If you do it to them, right? Do you follow on?
I follow that. I don't like that logical, if it is logical, stream of thinking that if they're doing it to you or they're doing it, then you're doing it back to them. It's sort of okay. That's okay because that's a bad launching pad to other stuff that's improper.
Well, I mean, you can take more extreme examples, right? Like, what if someone's attacking you? Then you can attack them back. Then you guys are equal. But if you just sit there and let them attack you, now they're the. It's hard to say that you're the one who's done something wrong unless there's a history going on. I mean, this is the whole idea. I've wrestled with this.
Listen, Huckadoodle. That's a false equivalence.
Why is that false?
You do things in self-defense. If someone is attacking you, for instance, physically, if someone points a gun at you, if you had it
right,
pointing a gun at them, this is what you're talking about. You don't even have to enter the situation, so it's not the same thing that they're doing it to you in gambling or poker, so you can do it back to them. You don't even have to walk into that door.
That's true.
If you walked into the door knowingly, you knew what the reality of the game was. So I'm just going to go in there and do to them what they were doing to other people or trying to do to me. So it's not the same as acting in self-defense, for instance. It's not even close to me.
Okay. Sure. Well, here's what I say to that. What if we just like change the rules of the game and then we just say ghosting's now allowed, and then you go in and then you ghost people? Like, do you see what I'm saying? Like, then everyone's on equal foot, right? So what's the difference between someone has now like shifted the way of doing things to ghosting. They're ghosting, and then it's like a slight breaking of the rules, and then both of you do it as well. You see what I'm saying?
Nah, yeah, I see what you're saying, but again, I mean, this might be a false equivalence, but let's say we change the rules. We go, everybody's home should be unlocked, and if you want to go into somebody else's home and take their stuff when they're not home, you can do that, and everyone has that same opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
Okay. So that means, okay, it's fine for me to go in somebody else's home and take their stuff. But it's not. So that's where you're just changing the rules where you just essentially are normalizing bad, or you're normalizing something that is morally objective.
Right.
So I disagree with the thing. If we let everybody ghost, what's the point? I mean, we should just all sleep in. It's really difficult to make.
I think that's not a bad attempt at getting at this. Normally, it's bad to lie for greed in any context. So, but however, when you're playing poker, and it's bad to deceive in any context for greed, but when you're playing poker, these things are allowed. At least, in the middle of the hand, there are many contexts in which you can lie about your hand, but it's not ethical, right? If you have a gentleman's agreement to share your hands and then you lie about your hand, that's not good, right? But in the context of poker, you can do things to deceive your opponents for money, but normally deceiving people for money in almost all other contexts is unethical. So why is it so crazy to extend this a little bit more and then be like, okay, now the game is X or Y? And yeah, I still think if you absolutely know that somebody is multi-counting, then it's okay. But if you're not really sure, then you are actually doing something wrong, because there's a percent chance that they're not, and that percent of the time times the fact that you're doing it makes you the bad person. So I would still say that if the other people are doing it, you can do it to the people that are doing it, but not to the people that are not doing it. So if anyone's innocent, it's not good. That's my stance. And there's lots of rooms to slip up and fuck up there. Let's put it like that.
I would say so.
Honestly, I am a big fan of traveling, like almost everyone. And I have this thing in my head, to-do list. I want to visit as many countries as I can. And when I went there, I was never been there before in Panama. And I had a friend who was going to play scoops there. And he said, let's go together. And we went after, that's not my boyfriend, just for clarifying, a real friend. And we went there to play online, actually. And he won a package for LAPT. And when we arrived, I wasn't even going to play there. And he said, hey, listen, when we're here, let's play. And why not? And we arrived at 6, and at 7 was the end of late registration. And it was kind of expensive tournament for me, because the buy-in was $2,500. I was playing $500 and $1,000 and euro buy-ins. And I say, okay, why not? Okay, minus 2.5K, no problem. And I came to the table. I remember I was very tired. And in the first hand, I lost half of my stack, and I was thinking, oh my God, really, I came here all the way from Europe through the ocean and invested a lot of money in this tournament, and this is it, this is the end. But somehow I made a comeback, and all the tournament I was doing good. I almost won it. In heads up, I was 2 times all in for the win, but I could not. So heads up is not my strong side. Is not my strong point, unfortunately.
But it looks like you're mostly play tournaments. Is that right? Mostly play live tournaments?
Yeah, correct. I play online as well, but people know me from live because they can see me. So
yeah, fair point. Yeah, I guess when you play online, you're just another whatever shadowless nerd on the internet. But live, they're like, oh, wait a second, she's not just some dude from the mom's basement. This is a lady here. Okay, things are a little different.
Could be.
2 questions. I'm curious, do you find that there's considerable money live? Have you tracked this or looked at it? Or are you just playing it? And do you think that being woman helps you to win more money live than perhaps men?
First, as long as you know that I'm from Ukraine, and it's like pretty cheap to live here. So I don't need to earn like huge amount of money to have nice life. That's what I was doing all my life, just playing tournaments and having good time, traveling here and there. I liked it a lot, this style. So it's like it was fine for me. As for your second question, they say that women can use that they are women at the table, but honestly, I don't know how to do that. When I'm playing, um, I do not know how to use this advantage, if we can say that. So I don't know. People never surrender, never give any things which make my life easier at the table.
Oh, really? So you don't just run into people that have some weird complex and are really aggressive against you, or just fold to you all the time because they're trying to be nice or whatever it is, or they're hitting on you and doing something weird with how they play? None of that?
No, because poker is like the game where like people are fighting for money, and they don't want, especially some men, they don't want to lose a hand to a woman. And I noticed this at the beginning of my career, that they tried to fight with me. And when people don't know me, like when I'm new at the table, they want to play a lot of hands with me because they consider me to be a weak player, and they want to use their advantage as they think they have versus me.
What is it that makes, one pro worth more than others? What precisely, like, how do you rate banter, for example, if you can rate it at all? Maybe you even have a scale for banter game, even though, like, I'm sure there's like some level of some smaller levels of subjectivity somewhere.
Absolutely. Yeah, you can never get fully away from subjectivity, but you can triangulate reports and look for facts instead of opinions. Like,
For sure.
if a VIP was like, I did not like losing that pot to that guy.
Yeah.
Well, that's not going to ding a pro's experience score. But if they say, I didn't like the way he talked to me after I lost that pot, it felt like either he was bragging or he just wasn't a humble loser, that will ding your experience score. So that's a cool distinction, like right off the bat. And there's a lot of stuff like that that goes on.
I can give you a little, like, I'll give you the first question we asked. We just say on a scale from 1 to 10, 1 being a robot, 10 being Alan Keating, like, where do you rate this guy? And that's how we start the conversation. And because there's this transparency and trust between us and the game runners we work with, we're able to get access to everybody that the player played with that day and get every opinion, the pro, the game runner, and the recreational, so that it's not just about, does the game runner like you or does the rec like you? It's about, are you contributing to the overall experience, which I think is big, to be fair,
I get that. I'm just trying to understand. I'm trying to like hear more about what are these precise ways. This is probably what the viewers are thinking. Like, okay, I get that. Now, how do I actually do that? One personal advice that I would give to people that helped me a lot and was one of the cheapest ways of self-improvement, I've advised this a bunch of times, is improv, because that's one of the ways you build your banter skills. I personally just try to make jokes all the time, and because I want to have a good time, and I'm like sitting there, and that helps me to have my jokes land a little bit more, and slowly improves the humor skill as one example of like actionable steps to get to this point. And then like what would be actionable steps to be more action, like 3-bet like 20% more than what GTO says, like that.
There's definitely 2 dimensions. We could say there's like the tactical dimension.
Yeah.
And then there's the soft skill dimension, which is more of just like the social side. I think the tactical dimension goes super deep. We've seen stuff that, unless we were in hands and analyzing them after and being like, was this an opportunity where you could have given a lot more action and not even sacrificed much EV? Like, those are spots that like pros need to be studying if they want to be good.
Yeah.
It sounds like you've probably found a bunch of those.
Yes, I have. I mean, I've been experimenting with a lot of that stuff. There's a lot of things. There's a lot more depth to poker. Like, this is the stuff that I'd like to teach in the mastermind and get on lockdown. Like, okay, how do you do things that are a lot more action, a lot more interesting, that don't really sacrifice EV, maybe a little bit of EV, but not too much, that make
it more fun for everybody and make it pushes even your game and even like helps you with your game and gets you in the game and gets you to be making more money.
From
in
a
the long run.
strategy perspective, the way a player needs to be thinking about designing strategy definitely shifts at the private level in the direction of what you're saying. You got to be looking through a lens of how much EV do I sacrifice by taking this action-oriented play relative to just doing what I would do if I was trying to maximize edge straightforward in a live environment.
Sure.
So that's dimension one. And I think it goes really deep to the point where like
Yeah.
we're creating entire modules on tactical calibration that is good for the game.
Yeah. To
Okay.
give some examples, like, I mean, one really obvious example is just 3-betting more with a little bit wider range with hands that are like a pip or two away. Like that seems like fairly obvious, but some other examples would be to incorporate more check raises. I wonder if overbets are better on the whole. You can also incorporate some leads. You can or incorporate looser calling ranges in a lot of spots too. Do just like weird creative things that spice up the game a bit.
A lot of weird creative stuff, especially if it's a game that's playing with bounties and some of the carnival games like Squid provides a lot of opportunities to do things that look pretty crazy but are actually pretty sharp.
Mhm.
And the advantage of that is that it creates a great experience. Like I think that's why games like Squid, if you're with the right group who really loves action, I mean, there are some recreationals who prefer not to play it, but there's nothing that drives action better than that game. Very few things that I can think of, at least. So it creates these opportunities for you to explore a lot of new pathways through which we can design strategy that just don't exist in traditional environments.
Sure.
And then to speak to the other side of the coin, once you're giving immense amounts of action, I think it just comes down to not being rude. Like as long as you're polite and you can have some banter, some conversation. If you're giving a ton of action, the guy's going to enjoy playing with you. As long as you don't do anything absurd like insult him or make a scene when you lose a pot, something like that, where there could be tension. I think
What was the thing that
second
they
kind of the second side of the coin becomes very easy once you've mastered the action side, at least for us.
The thing that they said in the consults a lot that we ended up tracking the pattern, it was something along the lines of, we don't care if we lose to that guy because we know
That if I lose a pot to him, I can win it back the very next hand.
it was
It was
his money's going to be right back in action next hand.
Yeah.
Like that was something that came up a lot. And then we saw that we're like, okay, so that's how the recreational experiences and internalizes an action pro. His money is right back in action. The opposite of that would be the pro who doesn't play any hands. And then in a big pot, he stacks them with aces and they think they're going to need a miracle to get it back from him.
Sure.
Okay. So
Yeah, I like that you're getting direct feedback from the VIPs and like actually you care about how they're feeling and
I mean that
what they're looking for.
they're a huge part of the decision of who's good for the game. They might be the heart of the decision, but then you also go to the other pros and the game runners and you get the full spectrum report.
because a lot of times, not to insult a recreational, but they might not be able to pinpoint exactly what it was that they loved about a guy. They just knew that they loved playing with him, and then that's why it's good to get the feedback from these other individuals that were in the game that might be more aware of specific things that the person did. And then we can
Sure.
track a lot of that. And to go back to your question, I mean, that's how we're building these systems is we're just tracking all of the good behaviors, all of the behaviors that VIPs want to see again and again, and all the things that they dislike immensely. And what we can do from there is build these systems to be very fair, very transparent, and repeatable.
Hi guys, I'm Dan Cates, and you may know me from poker as Jungleman. And now I'd like to give you the keys to that success so that you can have success in those games as well, and in fact win the game of life. And that begins with freedom.
And you want to have the community to help you to get there, join the Jungleverse now. We've got many of the tools and many of the links towards the best stuff that's out there in the poker market. And I'm committed to helping you guys become real champions of the game and make your dreams come true. That's my goal for you all. Join here. I'm helping us all work together to make a better future for everyone.
Where is the money? Is there actually a real path to 7 figures, or are we at a clear ceiling in poker? You can look at Smart Hand. There's only 5 guys a year really doing $1 million on publicly tracked sites, at least. It starts to raise the question of, is it even possible? Even if these guys did work really hard, could all of them make 7 figures, or is there just not enough money in the market to make that a reality? So that is where we decided it's time to start exploring if there is low-hanging fruit that we're missing. And so that's where I started to basically make the transition to private in search of where the money was. And that's where I met Paul.
Yeah, Nick and I sort of entered the space at a similar time. I was coming off a big tournament score, and I'm not as much from the online background. My whole world was live tournaments, live MTTs. But I was getting close to those guys that were at the top, like Foxen and I were friends, and some of the others. And I saw what the type of work they were putting in, and it led me to a similar place. I wanted to find where the low hanging fruit was. Also, where's the money in poker? Because it can't just be these MTTs that take years of pressing out variants and training and all of these things. Like there's still got to be money in the space. Yeah, I mean, so I think that's how Nick and I initially bonded. Was we were in these big battles every day, and we started going out after games and talking, and we got to this point where like, hey man, where this is where the money is. Like it was a realization simultaneously, and we wanted to figure out ways to make sure that the dream didn't end, I think.
And you can speak to this too. I mean, guys who don't know, specifically online guys, like private is a whole nother universe just in terms of stakes. I don't think online guys actually understand how big it plays. Just to put it in perspective for them, if you're playing 50-100 private, that session can quickly balloon into 200 and 400. And I don't think online guys are prepared for even how that works or how that happens. But that would be the equivalent of like you sitting down at a 2K and L. And then in the same session, that table turns into 10K and L. How does that happen?
Well, firstly, it happens, of course, because people never really want to play small. They want to achieve losses, and they want to like straddle. Oh, let's play a squid game or whatever. I think going back to your point of finding where that money is at, that's one thing I tell people a lot when it comes to the actual making money part of poker. It's not the end all be all, because at some level you have to improve your skill set. If you suck, your skill is like your magnifier of sorts. Like how good you are, it magnifies up to a point of magnifying your ability to make money. There are diminishing returns of sorts, but if you're trying to make real money, you have to look for where the opportunity is, where people are not looking, and you have to think, okay, what is it that I can do? Okay, some people get lucky, whatever, but what is it that I can do to get in these situations that other people are not getting into? If you can position yourself in one of these games, this is one of the biggest ways to earn something special. If you can find these games in the first place, and if you can figure out a way to get in. If you ask yourself, okay, how do you get in? And what are all the things you can do to prove yourself to get in? Like that will set you very far apart compared to a lot of other players who aren't thinking on this kind of dimension.
Let me ask you this. If you were to start all over, would you still do poker? And would you recommend it?
Wow, that's kind of a tough one because like I gambled for the first time when I was 6. Like I played my first hand of poker when I was 13. It kind of found me. I was like naturally good at games, math, numbers. My family were pretty open to it because my mom played like mahjong, so like they're open to gambling. So I feel like I didn't have a choice. But if you ask me and I could go back in time, I would probably play poker as a hobby and just do business because you just accumulate so much more. I think I would be much further along my life if I just put that many more years into business.
So how would you do things if you were to do them all over? I want to challenge this just because it just looks like you kind of started from the top up and kind of figure out how to get things from there. But if if you didn't like have all that money in the first place, how the fuck would you have started your own companies, hired everybody? It would have been a very different experience, I would have thought. But what do I know? Maybe you know something I don't. Maybe I could just be wrong.
I mean, it's definitely easier to start with having money from poker and knowing some other smart people. Like, because when I quit poker, then a few of my friends also quit poker and went to business. So it's like, you had other successful friends already doing business that you can kind of figure it out with. I had a lot of money to join courses and meet other smart people. So I definitely accelerated my journey because I started after making money. But at the same time, there's like many other business I meet so many 21-year-olds these days that like on Twitter or something, and maybe they're like running a marketing agency or something, or e-commerce store. Yeah, I mean, they figured it out and they're like 21 and they have money already. Like they kind of went through the same path, like kind of pace that I did in poker, as like, but they're running a parallel path in business. But they continue compounding because they went up the right mountain. I went up the wrong mountain, so I kind of have to climb down for a little while and then go up.
Yes, I guess if you're going to increase the likelihood of extreme success at a younger age, then for sure business, right? But I would argue that poker's distribution of success this is one of the attractive things of poker. The distribution of success is a little bit more predictable because business is such a massive game. I would think, like, how do you know which business to get into if you're just starting? You don't know it. Like, someone would not know anything. I don't know about you. Maybe you would do something right, like research the right markets and stuff like that. That's quite a hard thing for people to do when they get into business. In poker, you just get into poker, and if you're pretty good or pretty smart or pretty hardworking or whatever it is, pretty rational. Rational is probably more important than those other things, but correlates with intelligence. You can have like modest success pretty reliably a high percentage of the time, whereas like it's a huge chance you get into business, someone tells you to go to business school and you have a shitload of debt. Like no one ever talks about all those people. It'd be really nice to get some data behind that.
Okay, when I was playing poker towards the end of my poker journey, is like a lot of times is spent exploring, networking, and exploring private games and just like trying things out. You just like explore until you find a good game and then you try to exploit it to the max. Try to pay as much as you can in it. In business, generally, like for any new business that I go into, I'm exploring a lot of different things at once. Like instead of picking one, let's say marketing channel that I think is gonna work, I'm picking 5 of them that I think might work. Maybe I'm running Google ads, I'm running Meta ads, I'm posting organic on TikTok, I am doing email marketing, I'm just testing a whole bunch of different things. It's basically I'm exploring until I find something that is like pretty plus EV, and then I just step back. It's like, I see it all as potential S-curves, but at the start of the S-curve, you can't tell the difference between which will have that spike. But when you find something that has the spike, then you just bet more. When you have a winning hand, you just like go all in. And in business, it's kind of crazy because it's very scalable. When you find something that works, you can scale it for quite a while. Like if you find one channel that works, you can go take a business from maybe 100K per year to like 1 million or 2 million per year, just from like one channel.
So what are these channels?
Basically any advertising channel, or even like direct mail, or even word of mouth, or even physical trade shows. It can be any channel really, because I mean, of course, it depends on the market size and depends on whether there's enough people in that channel for your particular market. It's because of like a little bit of a flywheel effect, where especially when you're monetizing that channel, because you can get into a spot where, let's say you put $1,000 into Meta ads and you get back $2,000 within 60 days. Now you can put $2,000 the next cycle, and then you can put $4,000 the next cycle, as long as you have enough capacity to fulfill.
Sure.
So kind of like the flywheel spins and it goes bigger and bigger until the channel is exploited fully. And poker, I mean, I'm sure there's so many things you learn from poker. I think the biggest one is like EV, when you can bring that into business. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. So many people don't know EV and they run a business. They just don't know how it works.
That's very strange. I would have thought you can't be a successful business if you know, like, at least the concept of EV, like not the literal concept, but the idea that you don't care so much about the outcome rather than how well you do things. You know what I mean? And whether the outcome's actually positive. Or excuse me, whether the expectation is actually going to be positive.
I guess they kind of understand that they have to make the best decisions, but they are not very precise with a lot of things. Like for example, if you buy ads on Google, like for us, we would be thinking about, okay, what's the lifetime expected value or the lifetime profits that would come from spending this. Like a lot of people, even though it might be plus EV, but if it loses money upfront, they just don't understand that, you really have to factor in like a lot of variables.
I'm a bit curious what other sorts of weaknesses there are from people in businesses that they just like don't get over. Yes, aversion to loss seems like something that poker would help you with. It's not such a big deal to lose stuff when you're playing poker. And I guess a shitload of people have a massive aversion to loss. Anything else? Any other bigger examples, perhaps, in business? Like, that actually seems like a massive barrier. If you can't even invest in Google ads, if you're running a business, like, how the fuck can you invest in other things that will lose money up front?
Yeah, I mean, they expect an immediate ROI. Like, I just saw a tweet that somebody just quoted Jeff Bezos and it went viral. It's like, for us, it just seems so simple. It just says, if you have a 10% chance to go 100x, you should always take it. And it's like, for us, it's like, oh, the EV is so high. But other people are like, wow, this is true. It's so genius.
Yeah, that seems not like spectacular at all. It seems like a basic thought. I really know why. It seems pure status motivated virality.
Yeah, I mean, I put in quite a lot of thought into the other lessons I learned from poker that applies to business because, like, the story thread that I wrote, I actually have like maybe 50 parts of stories I have had in poker or in life through like learning poker and stuff, and the lessons I learned in business. So another one that comes to mind is like polarizing. So when you play poker, I think most poker players know that in a toy game, polarization helps you to generate EV versus the person that plays the calling, the bluff catching range. Like in business, I feel like people try to please everybody and they don't stand out enough, and they don't like if you really want people to know you, you kind of need people to like you and hate you at the same time. You can't have like people that love you without having some people that hate you as well. Like for example, my beauty clinics, a lot of brands are just like, they just have nothing unique. They don't say anything different from the competitors, and it's very hard. They're just like completely commoditized. So I don't think people really understand that sometimes you have to say things that people don't like for you to build a brand that calls out, especially in a competitive market.
You've got a bit of a routine going on for poker. You do a bit of fasting as preparatory work. Why don't you tell us about that? So is it just fasting? What else do you do?
Yeah, I mean, like the biggest thing that I do is fasting, because one thing that I've just always noticed is I just have a lot of brain fog when I eat a lot, especially when I eat a lot. So even if I'm not fasting, like it's just important to me to just have like a super, super light breakfast if I'm playing that day. And pretty much I won't eat almost at least until the session's over on a regular basis. I mean, it depends on the game and depends on the tournament, but generally speaking, if it's really important to me, I would prefer not to eat. And I mean, that's pretty much it. I drink a white Monster energy drink every single morning. That's part of my routine as well. I think it's quite healthy to, get some caffeine in you early in the morning. And yeah, that's what I like to do. Drink a white Monster, not eat much food, go play poker, and then come back home and, go to bed.
I actually do something similar in the morning, to be fair, but I've never heard anyone say that a Monster energy drink is healthy. A little caffeine, I think, I don't know if it's really healthy, but I personally am very tired in the morning, and it definitely helps me wake up. I noticed that. I did not know. Yeah, do you have any research on, or is there any particular reason why, backed by science, that you choose to do this? And also on the fasting side of things.
On the fasting side of things, honestly, it's like I've seen like a bunch of people like in YouTube videos of people talking about how fasting could be a really good thing, especially for cognitive function. So that's kind of why I started, but I could immediately feel the effects of how whenever I have like a big breakfast and a lot of carbs in the morning, I always feel pretty lethargic throughout the rest of the day. So that's kind of, it was more through personal experience rather. I think like a lot of the things that I do in life, regardless of whether it's healthy or not in theory, actually I just do it because it makes me feel better and it makes me feel like I'm performing better on a regular basis. I kind of like use my own personal experiences to drive, I guess, like what I do on a regular basis rather than like science per se.
Well, sure. Well, that's the idea. Is it's supposed to line up with personal experiences, right? It's supposed to work. That's the idea behind science.
Exactly.
That's the idea behind theory. If it doesn't work, then it sucks. It's bad theory.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, there's definitely some science to back up, fasting being a very good thing for just like all sorts of health benefits for that. And then caffeine and nicotine wise, these are just things that I've done for a very long time. And I feel like it helps me, stay focused and just stay focused.
Fair enough. I mean, caffeine. Okay, so caffeine actually does help people focus. The idea, the problem, that what makes it bad is the come off at the end. That's partly what made matcha popular. Was that it had a bit of the high, but it was a slow high. Versus caffeine is a high and a fall or a faster fall, and it takes from the back end. Whereas matcha doesn't. Maybe it takes a little bit from the back end of your energy, but It's a lot more gradual. But that's the argument against caffeine. I mean, I'm thinking to kick it myself, just as I had, of course, a month, but to drink right before coming on this podcast. Oh, yeah, good job, Jungleman. Fasting has loads of research about it. You're convincing me to get back into it. Did you not have any bad experiences with fasting, though?
Yeah, I mean, the toughest part about fasting is sometimes, without getting like the proper nutrition, at least from my experience, like towards the latter half of the day, you can actually like start getting almost headaches, is what I call them. It's just difficult in a sense that sometimes it feels like you just don't have the proper nutrition, so your head starts to hurt and like almost get migraines. But other than that, like at least for that first part of it, I think it's just like amazing, and like I feel super, super good. But then you kind of have like this rough patch, maybe around like 4 to 6 p.m. where things like you really want to get nutrition in and you really want to eat food, and your head starts to hurt because you haven't had a lot of food yet that day. But just kind of pushing through that, or just like having like a super, super low calorie healthy snack, like a banana, for example, or some other types of fruits and veggies. Like I think that can help you push through that barrier and then just kind of like allow you to fast into the evening.
How many years have you been playing?
I've been playing now for 3.5 years.
Oh, okay. That's not so crazy. Yeah, okay. It shows it's doable. I had hoped that it was possible to do this within like 2 years to get to high stakes. But I mean, it's still like you're still playing pretty high stakes, and it's kind of fast these days. I'd say maybe very fast for playing live poker. Actually, like it's not easy grind up. Or what do you think? Has it been? How doable do you think this is for others?
I think it's definitely doable, and I think it's doable in a shorter amount of time than I did it in, for sure. It's just like I didn't really have the right resources or know where to look. I think if I knew where to look and I like had to restart my career, I could do it within 2 years for sure now. But obviously the first time around is always going to be tougher than the second time around if you had to do it again. So, I mean, like going from 1.3 to 5.10, like this is just going to happen to anybody that is willing to put in work. But like from 5.10 to 25.50, it kind of takes, I wouldn't necessarily say luck, but either a long period of time grinding cash, or like you need to run into a couple lucky spots in a sense that you hit a couple MTT scores that like just give you like this massive boost to your roll, so where you can start playing bigger.
Isn't there 10-20 in between? And also you said there in your Instagram, you say that you make your own luck. Isn't that right?
That is true. That is true. You do make your own luck in a sense that I think in general, I mean, I think this is just true for anything, but at the end of the day, a lot of people like associate just there being so much luck in poker, but obviously we all know it's not luck that, you know, takes you from 1.3 to 25.50. It's the process, it's the journey, and it's like putting the work in that's necessary to get there and then building the roll. And, you know, that I think anybody can do it if they put enough work. The craziest hand that I ever played, I guess it could just be the biggest pot I won. Although I'm not entirely sure what he had. So I guess there's that. Oh no, what is the craziest? Like craziest hand in what way? Just like the most memorable hand to me, or?
Yeah, the most memorable. Let's just go with that.
Okay, so most memorable pot that I've ever played was probably like the first really big pot that I ever won, in a sense that like I don't think I had played many like 10 or even 15K pots at this point, but I did end up winning like this 20K pot, and that's probably the one that stuck with me the most. So kind of what happened was I'm in the cutoff or button with pocket aces, and then early position raises to 60. We're playing 5, 10, 20, and we're sitting about 10K effective. And then I 3-bet on the button to like, I don't know, 225, whatever the standard sizing was. And then he calls, and then the flop comes 3, 3, king. I think 3, 3, king. And he checks. I see that. No, king. No, it was king deuce 3. King deuce 3. And he checks. I see that half pot. He calls. Turn comes the 3 of clubs, and it like brings in this backdoor flush draw sort of thing. He checks again. So now the board's paired. I bet, I barrel, I overbet the turn pretty big. And then he check raises on the turn. I don't know. Well, I don't know the exact dollar amounts though, but he check raises. So like at this point, what he's doing is he's like trying to represent that he has a 3, I assume, 3 or like a 2s.
That's what's really hard, right?
Yeah, the real 3 that's hot. And we're just super, super deep. We're just, well, it's king deuce 3, king deuce 3, and then the turn is a 3.
Okay. All right.
So it's like king deuce 3, 3. He check raises the turn. Don't even remember the size of the check raise, but this is leaving like roughly like a 7K or 8K, or no, not 7K. It's leaving like a 5K bet on the river into, or like a 6K bet on the river into like a pot of like 10K or something. So I call the turn check raise after I overbet and he check raises. And then the river comes like another king. And it comes and it brings in what was like the front door flush draw. It brings in the front door flush draw with the king. So now it's king deuce 3, 3 king. So it's the board's double paired. I have pocket aces, and then he just jams the river, obviously representing like some sort of full house now, either with a 3 or a king. And then I just ended up tank calling because I don't know, like part of my reasoning was like he doesn't have like flushes in this line, I don't think, because he would have check raised all those flush draws on the flop. He was a player that like check raises like every single flush draw that he has. So I just assume that he never has the front door flush draw. He always has the back door flush draw if he is check raising. And then I didn't expect him to ever check raise any type of king X on the turn, obviously, when I bet. And then the 3X is just like he has like ace 3 suited, and I'm like double blocking like the suited wheel aces that match the board. So it's like a pretty easy call, I think. Although it was like a weird situation because it's like, I don't know how he wants to find bluffs on this river when I call his turn check raise. Like I just have ace king so much there, but yeah, that was the biggest pot, and that was the most memorable one.
It's funny to me because I was reading your interview, and actually a lot of your experience with playing with people is similar to mine. I remember actually a hand you played against me. You completely fucking soul read me. We'll get that. Are you willing to tell your thought process for that one? But I think we should talk. Yeah, we'll go over that because I brought it up straight away. But then we'll get right back into this challenge. I remember this hand. I was just owned so hard, and I know that this maybe you're thinking what I was thinking. You just knew, you saw my game or something like that. I like, you 3-bet. I called. Flop was 6-5-3. You check called. The turn was something like a 7. You check called again. I believe this was heads up, and the river was like a 6 or something like that. And you check called again, or like a jack, some total non-changing card.
I vaguely remember that. I think it was an overcard on the river.
Maybe a 9 or a 10.
Yeah, 4 to a straight and then a low overcard.
Yeah.
It can't have been a jack because you had king jack. And I heroed ace queen. Right?
Yes, I remember what your hero was. I did not forget that part.
Yeah, I remember that hand. It's kind of an interesting one because I was like quite new to high stakes at that point, and I sort of knew what my image was gonna be. That
I didn't have any. I didn't even know who you were at the time.
Yeah. That's what I mean. As in, my image is going to be, there's a guy who's new to playing quite big. There's a decent chance he's like money scared and gonna get run over. There's like a ton of scary hands you could have on this board. So I just kind of felt like you weren't gonna slow down when you got that many encouraging cards against a guy who you probably felt there was a decent chance I was just, money scared and gonna let things go. So yeah, I decided to flick in the call and was, pretty happy to see the king high.
I wouldn't say that that's really the reason why I decided to do that. I just thought I can just say that most people, to be honest, it's more based off of
It wasn't based off anything psychological. It's just based off of, I think most people don't know what the calling down range is, and don't think that most people know what the ranges look like in that spot. That's certainly been my experience for 10 years, and I know you talked about saying, oh, like for most of these players, you can just do whatever you're doing and it still works after a really long time. Yeah. Unless you're playing against actually very good players.
A lot of the tricks have a longer shelf life than they should, because people will like, they'll see something, and then because you're just one of many players, by the time the spot comes back around again, they've forgotten. So yeah, you can. A lot of the stuff sometimes I'm disappointed in people that you don't need to update what you're doing. It's like, oh come on, I've been getting them with this for so long. We should be on the next level by now. But yeah, people will let you get away with murder.
Yeah, that is how I feel. Although, yeah, it's kind of sad, but at the same time, okay, take their money. Yeah.
Yeah. Not mad about the free money.
To be fair, sometimes their adjustments can be correct, and it's hard to like adjust against the whatever percent, the studied or consciously thinking player is. So sometimes people do take the right adjustment against the majority of people, and it just might not. And if you just happen to be whatever the counter is to all that, then they happen to get shafted. I mean, to be fair, the population does do some things to counter itself in a smart way.
Yeah, I think that's one of the areas where I like to think I'm causing people more problems, because a lot of other people think about things in terms of a population, but I try not to. I try to think of every player as quite individual. It's always something I prefer to do, and I really like these sort of small pools where you get very familiar with the regs you're up against, because I think I'm much better at working out how an individual thinks rather than doing this like mass database stuff and working out what to do in the aggregate. I'd rather do a deep dive on one person.
Hi guys, I'm Dan Cates, and you may know me from poker as Jungleman. And now I'd like to give you the keys to that success so that you can have success in those games as well, and in fact win the game of life. And that begins with freedom.
And you want to have the community to help you to get there. Join the Jungleverse now. We've got many of the tools and many of the links towards the best stuff that's out there in the poker market, and I'm committed to helping you guys become real champions of the game and make your dreams come true. That's my goal for you all. Join here. I'm helping us all work together to make a better future for everyone.
So recently, at least, I've been playing a fair bit against Davey. And Davey's just so interesting to play, because there's a constant war going on of him trying to just stop you seeing rivers. Like it's just really hard to get to the river against Davey. And so that's been really interesting, just going over all of these hands and working out how to play back against everything. Like there was a hand where I think he 3-bet the flop and then he barrels the turn, I shove the turn, and I'm bluffing with second pair and he called third pair.
What? What hand is this? What the fuck?
So it was a single raise pot heads up. It was Jack 8-4, I believe, with a flush draw.
Is it heads up?
Check raised. So yeah, heads up.
Okay.
I check raised the flop with he 3-bets with, I think he has 5-4. I want to say I have ace.
Okay, that's interesting, but okay, I'm not really sold on this 3-betting the flop thing, but okay.
Yeah, but that's his whole thing, is that he assumes that no one else has studied it.
Oh,
So
I've tried
he's
such
taking you
approaches. I
down
looked
that
into
line.
it, but I want to add, there's a certain layer to that, because while that's a good idea, you have to look at the EV of these like little pocket, how do you say, these diverges in game theory, the change of what you actually lose at EV, and also how difficult it actually is to play against, on top of like some likelihoods of what people will do.
It's not particularly easy to master that. But yeah, I do like that idea against like top quality opponents. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think what he's going for is the fact that because he gets into these spots so often, he's just gonna play them at a much higher fluency and be more comfortable adjusting in them than you are.
Sure.
So then he's happy to get really out of line and make these very big adjustments in them to try and own you. But yeah, I think the turn was like a 3 or something. Yeah, a 3 or a deuce. I check, he barrels, and then I just rip it in. And he tanks for ages and calls off, and I have I have the ace 8 versus his 5-4. So I win a pretty big pot with my second pair. So yeah, I mean he did have the read that I was bluffing. But yeah, this is why it's so interesting with him trying to get into these spots and trying to think about okay, well, there's various problems. If you're too passive in these spots, obviously he's going to realize way too much equity, and that's a problem. But if you're aggressive and you pick your aggression poorly, he's really prepared to get out of line to play back against it. So yeah, it's a real fight for your life against Davey. Every time you get into these lines, stacks get in really, really fast. It's so much fun to play. I think
That's interesting.
Yeah, he's the most fun player to play, in my opinion. I'd say it's kind of between him and Flushy. Flushy's fun in a different way. Flushy's very interesting because the pot will be 5 big blinds, and then suddenly you're all in on the river. So it's kind of the opposite of Davey, whereas Davey, the money gets in super fast. Flushy, you think you're in a chill spot, and then suddenly he's all in, and you okay, I have to deal with this 10x, 20x pot overbet.
Flushy's changed. I broke stone even against Flushy over the longest sample.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's been around for quite a while, right? He's been
I think I was within 2 binds of him, one way or the other. Maybe he's got something to say about that. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying that. Yeah, those guys they're so interesting to play because they have these spots where they're willing to get so out of line. I mean, I've been playing a bit against Linus recently, and don't get me wrong, it's still fun, but we're a lot more bounded. If there's a lot less insane hands, I think, which happen between us. It's a lot more sensible poker going on, and things getting back and forth.
Boring.
And trying to
fuck that.
Yeah, we were trying to push our small edges, but then when I'm against Davey and Flushy, it feels like every single session there are a bunch of pots where we were both going for each other's throat completely. It's not it's not to say that the massive overbets don't happen against Linus or whatever, but it's just everything feels a lot more sensible. Making 6 figures is very doable these days. That's to make 50 buy-ins at 2K. That's so doable.
Is 2K not that? You don't think 2K is that tough?
I really don't.
Okay. I will say.
Yeah, I think that I think these guys have a solid baseline strategy, and if you go in there and you're not really trying to adjust, and you just want to play a more accurate baseline strategy than them and hope you beat them, yeah, there is not tons and tons of win rate against these guys. But once you get into these adjustment wars, especially if they're inexperienced in it and not willing to do it because you're the one guy in the pool who's actually putting that kind of pressure on them, and you are really picking people apart, doing off the table work, you can have very, very high win rates still. I really think so many people come in with this mindset of they think oh, I'm not making that many mistakes when I play against the solver, or they'll play on GTO Wizard or whatever, and they'll see oh, I'm only losing at 3 or 4 big blinds to the solver, and they'll think that that's the max win rate you can have against them, but it's not at all. If I know exactly where your strategy is limited, the amount I am beating you by can way surpass 3 or 4 big blinds, in the hands that you're playing individually against them. So I think people kind of kid themselves to some degree about how solved poker is, just because there's a bunch of players who are trying to play this safe style where they're limiting their own mistakes, but in limiting your own mistakes, you put limits on your own strategy and what it's capable of. And then someone who like understands the freedom that that's giving them means that they can get away with loads of stuff, which is supposed to be kept in check by you being prepared to throw the counter punches. But if that person isn't prepared to throw the counter punches, they can take a very liberal strategy themselves.
It sounds like, yeah, but if they're not throwing the counter punches, they're more exploitable than having 3 to 4 BB. I know what the counter punches fucking look like, and people are not throwing the counter punches. I played when I played the 100K MTT. I thought, what the fuck? When I looked at the solver, there's people were not playing as I thought they were supposed to. Like it didn't. Things were not what they're supposed to look like.
Yeah, I recently started playing some MTTs, and I was kind of just like, I'll play them for some fun or whatever. I'll just do something on Sunday, stream it. And I expected to get outplayed, at least in a fair few spots post-flop. And then I was just looking at spots and I was like, okay, well, these guys they don't really know what the underlying dynamic between stuff is. I can get away with complete murder against these guys, or like there were spots where people were just repping nothing. I was like sitting there tanking with like 4th pair or whatever, like really confused. Like, is he just trying to get me to call? Like, how is he repping so badly? Like, this guy's like a high stakes MTT ray. Like, surely he must know what hands he can have. But yeah, people just can't get off script. And like, yeah, if you're good at getting off script and you can think through things very logically rather than just having this sort of rigid copy the solver mindset, then there's so much edge against these guys.